Welcome back. Eskom Chairman Jabu Mabuza says coal stockpiles levels have improved and they are now meeting their requirements. The power utility is battling to deal with major financial and operational challenges that have resulted in the implementation of load shedding. Mabuza was addressing the media at Lethabo Power Station in the Free State.
Our coal stockpiles has been improved. We are by and large meeting some of our agreed requirements. The quality, we have remained very rigorous in ensuring that we use the right appropriate coal for that particular power station. We had diesel issues when we last met. We've been able to secure diesel, and we've been able to be more forward planning in our procurement and sourcing of diesel. We did point out that some of our procurement processes are challenging and not very much appropriate for a crisis and an emergency situation. We have looked into our current legislative framework. Minister, there is no need to be seeking to go outside of that. Within the legislated framework, within the PFMA, there are mechanisms in which we can fast track, and this has to be seen to be distinct from emergency sourcing, can fast track the procurement of goods and services.
All right, for a little bit more on Eskom's update, I'm now joined by senior economist from econometrics, Dr. Azar, Jamine, and the CEO of Whitford Group, Adil Nchabeleng. Thanks very much for joining us, both of you.
Thank you so much.
All right, I'm not sure where to start because both very important bits of information. Let me start with you because energy is really your thing, and I just wonder, did what you hear this afternoon give you a sense of comfort or ease some tension?
Look, from our perspective where we stand, there was no sense of comfort or ease. The minister has still indicated that there will be a lot of load shedding coming in, and they are predicting that it will be stage 1, which might even move to stage 2, depending on how the winter is going to be. You know, it's going to be an unpredicted winter. If it gets too cold and people are demanding a lot of electricity, it's going to affect the grid itself. So at this stage, there are no guarantees. What we're given is a speech, which is what we have expected, that every 15 days they'll be giving a report in terms of the analysis. The analysis is still incomplete. The information that has been provided just says that we have done an analysis of what is happening in power stations. What came out very interesting is the speech about power stations not having managers that are managing, which is actually not factually true. Power stations do have managers, but what has been happening within Eskom is they have been doing forced shutdown of power stations. We have not had the minister speak about bringing back the power stations that have been shut down back into line to ensure that there is enough grid energy and there is enough power produced in the whole system. The other issues we know about, we have already spelled them out on the show, that there is issues of maintenance, there's issues of scheduling, there is issues of breakdowns that have been happening within Eskom, and the aspect of management negligence and non-involvement. I am happy today that we're sitting here and we're having now a responsive government, because had it not been for public pressure, we would not be seeing this level of response, and now the ministry, including Eskom itself, coming forward. What I'm still worried about is Praveen is still acting as the CEO of Eskom. It is not the responsibility of the minister, but the CEO of Eskom to take responsibility and drive the ship and actually make sure that they generate electricity.
All right, so just before I turn to you, Azar, a lot of people are probably thinking, hang on, they're talking almost as if they're managing and planning the outages and the durations and so on and so forth. But when I look back at what's just happened in the summer, before winter, we were hearing about unplanned outages, even suspicions of sabotage and things blowing up. This has got nothing to do with maintenance, diesel, etc., etc. I wonder what's different that we should feel confident that they're managing the situation this time.
Well, the current thing is just a PR work to ensure that the ruling party does not lose power. I mean, even the minister came forward and saying load shedding must not be used as a campaigning position. Who's not going to not use it as a campaigning position? When a ruling party messes up like this and cannot even manage a simple power stations that they've inherited in working condition, and they have run it down to a point where they have not done the maintenance, who's not going to use it? So the issues are still there. There are fundamental challenges currently facing Eskom. One, budget of making sure. The other aspect of it is the current money that is spent on IPPs, which they are still not addressing. Yeah. There is no concern on how are IPPs affecting Eskom's balance sheet as well as revenues, and how they can remove them and ensure that the revenues are directed towards maintenance rather than paying for a cost which they are not even getting value out of it. Okay. One of the national operator said it very clearly that IPPs are only producing 25% of its value into the grid. Right. Out of the 4,000 in line, only about 1,000 plus 1,004 is coming in line, and it's actually up and down. So the issues are not resolved. Okay. We're getting now a report.
So I'm going to have to bring in Azar because we're running out of time. But so we got a temporary reprieve from Moody's, sort of lifted our spirits ever so slightly. But this energy story is going to be central to what happens if there's going to be a recovery in the economy. Do you think investors listening to what the minister had to say this afternoon is going to give them some kind of hope?
I think it's a damage control exercise. I think it is a public relations exercise. I totally agree. And to the extent that Pravin Gordhan tried to suggest that any load shedding will be probably limited to 1,000 megawatts. It's an attempt to try and just calm things down, because when we had that intensive load shedding of 4,000 megawatts, economists like myself started extrapolating that for months or an entire year, and I was afraid of a full-scale recession. And they're clearly trying to manage expectations. But is this the end of the crisis? There's nothing in what was said to suggest to me that they really are coming to grips with the problem. And there's one additional issue, and that is the borrowing requirement of Eskom. Very little was said about that. And with tariff increases being awarded to Eskom that are much lower than what Eskom itself required, this utility is going to be borrowing a lot more money, and taxpayers are going to have to foot the bill in due course.
And it almost makes it an inevitability that jobs are going to have to be shed, because the books have to balance one way or another.
That is without a doubt the case. I think some of the comments, criticisms about the bloated size of the workforce at Eskom have overlooked the fact that actually you do need people to help with distributing more electricity to 2 million more people than was the case 10 years ago, without necessarily having more consumption of electricity. But still, there does appear to have been an excessive increase in the workforce at Eskom. And this raises, I mean, we still haven't even mentioned the word of the trade unions and how we're going to deal with them in this instance.
All right, so what is, they were talking about scenarios again. Based on what you've seen and what you know, what is going to play out, do you think, over the next few months?
Over the next few months, one, they are waiting for the elections to pass. And thereafter elections, you will see a lot of rapid and radical processes happening, whereby workers are going to be targeted. The second aspect of it is they're going to do a huge rationalizing of what they fundamentally feel is what Eskom needs. There's going to be a proposal for the actually privatization of Eskom outright. I mean, Azar has just explained to you that the debt is ballooning. They don't have a solution towards the debt of Eskom. So the issues are going to escalate after the elections. Right now, it's actually damage control. They are just doing a running around and making sure that there is a proper PR exercise. Because if they do not solve the energy crisis of South Africa, the ruling party is not going to come back into power again. So they are doing the PR exercise in order to give people confidence that just vote us again so that we continue. But after the elections, you are going to see the real colors. The ruling party is going to come out and saying, we're going to chop workers, we're going to actually sell off part of the power stations that we don't need. We're going to make sure that we actually privatize and bring in a lot of IPPs into play. And not only that, the issue that was raised, Eskom is currently being supplied stones, which is actually, in a place of coal. There's a lot of coal theft happening. Nobody has brought that attention to the current, the CEO, as well as the minister has not spoken about it. There's a lot of diesel utilization. They are using diesel like it's never been seen before. And now they have an open checkbook where they can buy as well as procure as much as they want. Who's going to be looking at those books? By the time they finish resolving load shedding, Eskom will be literally bankrupt, because right now there are no processes that stops them from doing anything that they wish. They have an open checkbook, they've already bypassed all procurement rules, and they have nobody looking over them. So as the public, as stakeholders in the energy space, we need to be even more fierce and hold them to account. And by only holding them to account is to make sure that we do not return this administration back into power, because they have messed up the economy of South Africa. We are currently in a zero performance economically. There is no growth into the economy, and we're bringing back the same people who have caused the problem to solve the new era that we're walking into. So we are saying very clearly that it has not worked. So it is time they retire. We have demanded that the CEO of Eskom as well as the COO be actually relieved of their jobs and resign or be fired. The second aspect of it, it was very clearly made that we need the board removed so that you have new people, new energy, young people. Bring in the engineers in Eskom, let them lead Eskom and produce electricity.
Okay, but that's quite a process still to come. But May 8, a milestone. In the meantime, small shops are closing, small businesses are struggling, and big business itself, mines teetering on the edge, losing billions in the economy. What's your view of what the next 6-7 months are going to look like?
This morning I had with my own team a session to try and forecast, to do an update on our economic growth forecasts. And I expressed the view that I'm not even sure that we'll have any growth in the economy this year. The official forecasts, left, right and centre, because everyone's too scared to publish an unduly pessimistic one, will show you growth of 1%, but more than that. But actually, we may even end up with negative growth if I'm not convinced that what Pravin Gordhan told us today is necessarily going to turn out to be as passive and as palatable as what he seemed to portray. And that is the unfortunate thing. There is huge uncertainty, and that in itself feeds on itself by dissuading investment from coming in, and that in turn leads to lower growth and more jobs lost.
Okay, so we're going to have to leave it there, but I think you've painted a picture of some scenarios that could play out, and clearly this energy issue is
we're in a disaster zone.
Yeah,
it's what it is, and there's no solutions. They need new blood, they need new active people, they need to change the entire outlook and fire these old ministers that have been in power for 25 years doing nothing, and get Eskom working. You're producing electricity. It's as simple as that.
My goodness. All right, gentlemen, thanks very much indeed for joining us and sharing your insights with us this day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, okay, that's where we're going to leave that for the time being. Let's deal with something perhaps